let's go ahead and get started with today's lesson. For those of you who don't know me, I am John Arnold. I am the Chief Inspiration Officer of the 7-Minute Life, and this is our second video in a series of 4 called Time Management from Scratch. And we are teaching this so that we can address some common problems. So we said time management from scratch because one thing that Allyson and I have noticed is we get a lot of people who come into the 7-Minute Life, and we help people with becoming not only more productive, but making sure that they're working on the things that matter most to them, that are going to bear results and going to make their life joyful and more meaningful. So what we have noticed is we have some awesome tools, and many times people will get the tools and they will see their life kind of marginally change. And we know the tools work because we've used them with thousands of people, literally, to completely transform their lives. And what we've realized is that all it takes are a few critical gaps to pop up, and someone will take tools and they might as well have just gone out and bought like a regular calendar and be managing their life the way they've always managed it. Well, we want to cut through that with this series, and today I'm going to plow into goals, because goals are kind of at the very heart and center of how you manage your time. Goals help you know where you need to focus for the day. They give you direction. They are energizing. And at the end of the day, they are what tell you whether or not you've had any results that you want. In our first video, if you haven't seen that, a no-fail it was core elements of a no-fail time management plan. Goals were at the heart of it. We looked at priorities and purpose, goals, and having a daily system for taking action. What I'm sharing here today is going to close the gap between your daily action steps and your goals, and it's going to help you craft your goals so that they are easily actionable. And here's what we're running into. We find lots of people, and I suspect this is you if you're on this call, where you're pretty motivated, you want to make the most out of your life, you want to be a producer, and you're struggling to get there. You find yourself pulled in 1,000 directions, whether that's as a busy mom or an executive or small business owner. We see this all the time. The solutions are the same. Doesn't matter which one of those roles you're in, the solutions are the same. And I don't want to take a lot of time pounding that, because you know that you need this or you wouldn't be here. Let me start with a little glimpse into my own goal setting problems, where I was awakened in this last year as to how critical goals are. I have for many years now set annual goals near the end of December and early January. They have been guideposts for me through the entire year. Last year, due to some changing circumstances in my life, at the beginning of 2017, I failed to put any goals in place. I went into the year goalless. And I honestly, when I look back, I cannot tell you what I achieved of worth during that first 6 months of the year. I literally just found myself in a mode of living a reactionary life. And that's what happens if you don't have a path or a destination that you have intentionally chosen. You're just going to wind up going down the path of least resistance. And for about 4 to 6 months, that's what happened with my life at the beginning of 2017. I recognized the problem about 4 or 5 months in, and I set goals for the last half. No goals at the beginning, can't tell you what I got done. During the last half of the year, I did 2 major milestones. Actually, I hit 3 major milestones in goals. One, I created and produced a podcast and I released it. I now have 29 episodes. It's for my personal site, The Practical Disciple, and I have had over 2,000 downloads since November when I released it. And it is going strong, and weekly I'm putting content out there. That happened because I set a goal for the last half. I also created and launched my own course on how to, around living out your purpose, called Fire Up Your Purpose. I had a goal of having 15 to 20 people in that class. I had never done that before, and I got 20 people. I got the top of my goal, and hit the financial goals and hit the goals that I wanted to for helping people out. And then last but not least, in the middle of that last half, I hit a milestone of doing yoga every day for a year. And now I'm at like 550 days or something. I don't know. I'm going to have to check it out. But all of those things happened because I had concrete goals and I knew how to pursue them. What's really remarkable about this is that I was going through a health crisis in the last half of the year. That's how powerful goals are. My heart fell out of rhythm. I discovered I had AFib, atrial fibrillation, in August of last year. I was dragging. I could barely move. I was anesthetized 6 times in about 2 or 3 months in that last quarter of the year. I went through 4 cardioversions where they shocked my heart back into rhythm because it fell out. And I went through what's called an ablation, where they went up into my heart and did a procedure to correct my AFib. I was going through all that, and I had significant amounts of downtime because of that. And yet I produced a podcast, a course, and hit a goal of doing yoga every day for at least 30 minutes. So goals are powerful, powerful stuff. I can't even tell you what I did in the 6 months before. But not all goals are created equal. And many times people make some very simple mistakes that are correctable from the front end. And if you make these mistakes, your goal will either stagnate or you may not even get started on it. So let's go ahead and plow into those mistakes. And there's going to be some common wisdom here, and I think some very uncommon wisdom here. I want to start with what may be common because it's so important. And if you're not doing this already, you need to be doing it. One of the main problems people have right from the get-go is they create vague goals that aren't actionable. Vague goals. Your goal needs to be as clear and precise as you can possibly make it. The clearer your goal is, the easier it will be able to be actionable, and the more readily you'll be able to recognize whether or not you're completing it and measure it. If you don't have a mechanism for creating a clear goal, one of the best ones that I know out there, and we won't go into this in detail because it's something you can easily Google, you can correct that by creating what are called SMART goals. SMART goals, you will find this is an acronym, you'll find people defining those in various different ways, but the methodology I use around SMART goals is I make them specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. So let me give you an example. Many people will set, for example, a health goal of, I'm going to lose weight. That's as vague as you could possibly get, right? If you make it more measurable, you might say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds. If you want to make it even more specific, you might say, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by running 3 days a week, or going to the gym 3 days a week and adjusting my diet. And then time bound would be to put a deadline on it. I'm going to lose weight by running 3 times a week by my birthday, June 20th, which is my birthday, by the way. And I have a weight loss goal. So this is not all that hypothetical. Achievable means it's kind of realistic that you could get it done. It might stretch you, but you're going to be able to do it. If I said, I'm going to lose 20 pounds by next week, that is never going to happen, right? So you got to make sure it's something that you can actually achieve. And relevant, you want to know why you're doing it, because the why behind it is what gives it energy. And it's also how you guarantee that this connection is here between your priorities and purpose and your goals. Because your energy in life comes from whether or not you're doing something of high value for you, that you love and enjoy. And if you don't know why you're doing this, odds are it's not being motivated by one of these highest values. So that's kind of a stop back. Relevancy is a stop gap from literally creating this gap between those. Otherwise, what happens is you burn out, you stagnate, and you don't get that goal done. if you don't know why it's relevant. So, all right, I'm going to keep moving pretty quickly because we got 7 of these to cover. The second one that I want you to be aware of, it's related to what I just said about time bound. If you're not setting deadlines, then you're going to leave it open-ended and you're just going to become, it's going to become a someday goal. So the first deadline you need, notice I said first, and this is where I think we're going to get in some uncommon wisdom. A lot of people know they need to set deadlines, but they're not doing it. I'm going to just put time bound here, but I want to add to that. You don't only need a deadline for when you finish, but what oftentimes people fail to do is they fail to set a start date. And if they don't do that, they procrastinate until it's looming over them. And then they do an 11th hour rush to try to complete the goal. And at that point, it may no longer be realistic. And I've watched that happen to me, where I put something, I'm like, oh, I want to do this by such and such a date, but I don't tell myself when I'm going to start. And what happens is I don't start until it becomes almost a crisis level activity in my life. So I hope that makes sense to people, but you want not only a deadline, but you also want to have a start date. Now I put a gap between those. If there are any, put any benchmark or milestone dates in the middle. Any benchmark or milestone dates in the middle. So for example, on weight loss, I have a weight loss goal for my birthday in June. I am not only thinking in terms of my overall weight loss. I have weight loss benchmarks that I want to hit by certain months. So like, I know where I want to be at the end of March. I know where I want to be at the end of April. I know where I want to be at the end of May. This does 2 things for you. It keeps your energy on track so you don't become hit and miss in your efforts toward the goal. But it keeps you motivated, because 20 pounds could be demoralizing, right? If I'm going, man, 20 pounds, that's a lot. I don't know how I'm going to do that. But if I say, hey, right now, this is how I'm going to lose the first 5. And that's it. This is how and you may need to say, if you've been struggling with something like weight loss free, you may have to say, how am I going to lose my first pound? Okay. That's a benchmark event if you've been stuck or you've been gaining, because losing a pound, if you've been on an upward trajectory, is not just loss, it's turning a trend around. And that's a benchmark thing. So make sure you don't only have a deadline. Oop, I forgot my L. But you also have a start date, and you have whatever necessary benchmarks might need to be in the middle. All right, let's keep moving. Number 3, I want to hand you a question that can fail-safe your goal. Many people, they fail to consider the weak link. Here's what I mean by that. And I'll tell you the question I used. Weak link. They fail to consider what is the weak link. Start with a story, and then I'll tell you the question. I got this strategy from, I watched a man who was an Olympic athlete, and he was interviewed, and he was talking about how after he won a gold medal, he went and he interviewed other gold medalists, and he had a question for them that was this. He said, what was your plan for pain? He asked that question because he knew no one achieves a gold medal without going through pain, right? You're not going to get to a gold medal without pain. Pain was the weak link in their whole pursuit. Pain could derail any one of those athletes if they did not have a plan for that. Well, what I have started doing around my goals is on every goal, I ask myself, once I get it written, I ask myself, where could this goal fall apart? Where could this goal fall apart? And I'll give you an example. I was helping someone in a mastermind group. They had a goal where they wanted to create a prayer path on their property. They had 20 acres, I think it was, and they wanted to create a prayer path through their woods. And they set a goal of doing it in the spring, and that was several months away. And they, by and large, had a pretty good plan. And I said, okay, So where and how could this fall apart? And what we realized was, because it was an outdoor goal, there were two places that we found were weak points. One was, being an outdoor goal, spring was a great time because the weather, by and large, temperature-wise, would be fantastic, but it could all fall apart if they had a terrible rainy season. So we had to come up with a strategy for, what will you do if you wind up with rain that can keep your goal moving forward? Or do you need to adjust your time in case all these days you've planned may not work? Do you need some alternate dates in there? But that may have saved their entire project, because if you've got this tight timeline and you haven't considered the fact that I may get rained out 5 weeks in a row, well, what are the activities you can do that you can do no matter whether it's raining or not? Maybe that's when you go purchase materials. Maybe that's when you go cut brush, because it doesn't matter whether you're in the rain or not. Anyways, they looked at the fail point, and it fail-safe their goal from falling apart. So you always want to ask yourself, what's the weak point? Another one, I'll just throw this in there as a little bit of a bonus when looking at your weak points, is if you're doing something new that you have no experience curve with, pad it with extra time, because you don't know what you don't know. I have found that lack of knowledge can be a fail point. The way to stopgap that is to do one of two things: lots of research, and that's a way to head it off the pass. But on the back end, you might want to plan extra time because you don't know what you're doing, and it's probably going to take longer than you think. I had that happen with my podcast. All right, let's keep moving along. Number 4. Get this out of the way. Number 4 is, gotta move my sheet over here so I can check my note. Number 4 is not reviewing regularly. For every goal that I have, I always make sure I have a review interval. Now for me, I have 3 that I always regularly. I have 3 review intervals that I do around my goals. Weekly, every Monday morning, I sit down and I go through every goal I have for the year, even if I'm not working on them yet, okay? So like if it's an annual goal, it's not starting till August, I still review it right now and just say no action yet. And I write down, when I do my review, I write down what I have done or haven't done. There are a couple reasons I do that. It front loads my mind, it keeps me open for resources, and it ensures that the goal doesn't fall off my map, so that I find myself, I planned on starting in August, but because I'm not reviewing it and reminding myself it's there, I don't want to find myself in September going, oh my gosh, I should have started on this 6 weeks ago, right? So every week I review every goal. Then quarterly, I review again to see if a goal is still appropriate or not. There are times where I have to throw out a goal or I have to adjust a goal. And if you do reviews, it gives you a permission point to revise what you're doing, rather than just keep plowing ahead and either be disappointed in your failure to meet what you planned on, or to find yourself on a goal that was a bad goal. Sometimes you write a goal that you realize in retrospect was, you know what, this was a mistake. My real goal should have been. And you want review intervals so you can give yourself permission to look at and say, hey, how's this going? Do I want to continue on as is? So I do weekly, I do monthly, and I do annual reviews of all my goals. Okay, so if you don't have a review interval, you want to put that in place, because otherwise you become feast and famine. One last example on that, when I set my annual goals 4 or 5 years ago, I was literally only getting done about a quarter or a third of my annual goals, mainly because of the mistakes that I told you about before this. Putting in place a review interval, a weekly review, took that and completely transformed it. The year I started doing a weekly review, I crushed like 80% of my goals. The other 20% I revised, or I at least made partial movement on. But I had activity on 100% of my goals. Without a review interval, I found there were many goals that I just failed to even touch. I had a great idea and didn't do anything with it. So really, really critical. Number 5, we're going to keep on pushing on here. Failure to create a habit around your goal. Failure to create a habit. I take every goal, and once I have my goal written, I ask myself, what is a habit that I can create that will create inevitable success for this goal? What is a habit I can create? So for example, when I wanted to write a book, when I was writing my first book, I set up a habit where every day I wrote 500 words every day without fail, however long that took me. Now, when I was revising my book and I created a second edition, I altered that some because I had a lot more going on in my life, and I created a habit of taking 30 minutes to write every day, and I wrote however much I could in that 30 minutes, and I knew that if I just did that long enough, I would eventually hit the word count goal I had for expanding my book by 25%. So always ask about your goal. What is a habit I can put in place? The other reason a habit creates inevitable success, but also a habit makes action easier. There's been all kinds of research done that shows that if a person with a habit around an activity, it makes it easier for them to take the action than a person without a habit. So when you have a down day, when you have a lot of distraction, if it's routine for you, the routine will almost carry you through the hump of that. So what is a habit that will create inevitable success? Number 6, you want to, one thing you don't, jump back. Number 6, you don't want to treat your goal as an extracurricular activity. So I'm going to put, here's what I mean by that. That may not make a whole lot of sense on its own. Treat as extracurricular. I'm just going to abbreviate that. Treat as extracurricular. What I mean by that is goals should be the starting point of your time management, and you make everything else work around it. What most of us do is we treat goals as if they're extracurricular, meaning this is what I need. These are things that are going on today that I need to do. And we do those things. And if we have time left over, we spend it on our goals. What happens is you just keep pushing it further and further out to the margin. If you work on goals only in the margin, I guarantee you what's going to happen is most days, the margin is going to get squeezed by pressure from other things, and it's going to get shoved off the page of your life that day. You want to place the goal in the center of your life and write everything else around it. And you do that by taking action steps on your goals as the first thing you do during the day, or scheduling them. If you can't do them first, then you schedule them and then you work around it. We have a thing, when I go to meetings, we have what's called an order of the day. An order of the day, when you have a meeting, is an agenda item that, like, when it hits 11 o'clock, no matter how far behind or far ahead you are in the agenda or whatever, no matter where you are in the agenda, if it hits 11 and you have not addressed that item yet, you're going to address it. That's making it a priority, and that's treating it as crucial rather than extracurricular. And then last but not least, one of the biggest problems that I see is most of us are going it alone. You have no accountability for your goal. You have no support. And that's where, for me, that can be a partner, or for me, it is a mastermind group that I meet with every Monday morning. And I review my goals in the morning, and then I meet with my mastermind group in the afternoon, and I can review with them what I'm planning on doing. And I can review with them how I did during the last week, and they always have tremendous wisdom for me. All right, those are the 7. Let me review them again real quickly. Vague goals. You don't want vague goals. Number 1, you want SMART goals: specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, and time-bound. You want to make sure that you have not only a deadline, that's common wisdom. The uncommon wisdom is to have a start date and any interim dates that you need in place to keep you motivated and moving. Number 3, people fail to consider where the whole goal could fall apart. So you always want to ask yourself that question: where could this goal fall apart? And have a plan for how you will respond if that happens, or what can you do ahead of time to prevent it. The next one is not having a regular review interval. I may have got that out of order, but that's okay. You've got it. Failing to have a regular review interval. That keeps you on track, and it keeps you from a feast or famine approach to getting your goals done, where it seems to be all or nothing. Working on your goals when time allows, making it an extracurricular activity was the next one. We don't want to do that. We want to always make sure that we are placing it at the center of things. What habit can you create? People fail to create habits around their goals, and habits are what ensure inevitable success. And then last but not least, do not go it alone, okay? Find yourself a group. You can pull that together on your own. If you don't want to pull one together on your own, we have coming up a new mastermind group that the 7-Minute Life will be running. It's going to start April 19th. And there'll be a button on the page that you're watching this on if you're watching a recording of it. And we'll share a link if you're watching it live in just a moment. But that we have a morning and an evening session for that each week for 7 weeks, where we teach you the things you need to know and get us all on the same page, so that we actually help you work through your purpose and priorities, so you know exactly what those are. We actually help you work out what are your goals going to be, how is that daily system going to work, and what is it going to be. And the crucial element we have found is that on Mondays, I do kind of an open office hours with people where I sit down and they say, listen, this is what I'm struggling with, and it's crushing me right now. Can you help me out? And as a group, we workshop whatever it is you're going through and get you to a breakthrough. Sometimes it just takes one little thing to take your stagnated growth and progress to skyrocketing. And I have found mastermind groups are the absolute best way to do that. So you'll want to check that out. Again, it'll start April 19th and last 7 weeks. And you'll be able to find more details. We'll be releasing more details here soon if they're not out already by the time that you watch this video. Now, I have we've got a private Facebook group going right now. You can search on Facebook for the 7-Minute Life community. Ask to join, we'll get you in there. And people are sharing things, action steps to move forward. And here's what I would love for you to do. I would love for you to go over to the Facebook group and write I raised SMART goal. Write one SMART goal, all right? Specific, measurable, achievable, relevant, time-bound. Write a SMART goal that would make a meaningful difference in your life, and post it and share it with us over in the 7-Minute Life community. I'll take a peek at it. I'm jumping in there regularly throughout the day. And if you put it there and I see some way I think you can tighten it up, I'll either ask you some questions around or make some suggestions, but go share a SMART goal so we can help you achieve your next success. And I think that's about it. I'm going to wrap this up now, and I'm looking forward to seeing people in the next video. And for those of you who are live on this, I'm going to take some time now and we'll answer some questions. So, all right, here we go.